views expressed on the following broadcasts do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT, Take 12 Radio, or our affiliates. The opinions on this show should not be considered as medical, psychological, or professional advice and are those of the host, co-host, and guest. Take 12 Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting are not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship.
Welcome to Entitled to Overcome, exploring solutions for life today. A presentation of Take 12 Recovery Radio. And now, here are your co-hosts, Dave Fleming and the Monty'man.
I thought that was a stick of dynamite for a second.
It did look a little like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, I thought, well, you got some fireworks here to set off in the studio?
It's my thunder machine. Isn't that cool?
Do it again, do it again.
You gotta... It's tricky to do it without making the spring.
Alrighty then.
Yeah, Wes, our friend Wes brought this in. It's one of those thrift store finds, and we've been using it as a sound effect on a couple of the other shows. Kind of cool. Yeah, pretty cool. Well, welcome to
Find all kinds of good things at
you do. That's what I tell people.
Teen Challenge thrift store.
You really need to understand that you're cheating yourself if you don't pop your head into a thrift store once in a while, because you can find some amazing things. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's one of my weaknesses.
Thrift stores?
Is good deals. I
good
think
deal.
More than thrift stores. But yeah, I told my wife we should, in our retirement, or we go buy some storage units and then go open up a thrift store and
you could be like that.
Sell this
TV show. Those people that goes in the store.
Storage Wars.
Storage Wars.
That's an awesome show.
Man, I'm telling you, they find amazing stuff. Sometimes they find nothing, and sometimes they find. I mean, they make bank, man.
Right.
So if you go somewhere and something's on sale, and it costs you $80, but it's 50% off. Do you save $40 or have you spent $40?
Huh?
So Marcia comes home and says, I saved $40. I go, how much was it normally? $80. I said, no, you didn't save $40. You spent $40. Where's the $40 you saved? See my point?
Yeah.
See, I would not be a good partner going thrift store shopping.
Is that like a glass half full or half empty?
Yeah, I suppose so. I don't know. Well, welcome
glass
to it.
Is always full.
It's always full. Yeah.
You just can't see it if it's when you look at the glass and it's half full of something. The other half is still full. It's just you can't see what's
there's molecules in there, right?
Well, air,
right?
I mean,
so it's always full.
If you're going to be, scientific and practical about there's air, but you could also look at it as your life, right? Being filled with the Holy Spirit.
So welcome to Entitled to Overcome Solutions for Life today with Dave Fleming.
Monty.
And the Monty. Man. And so a little more nonsense. My son brought up an interesting point. He loves to debate. He said, is water wet or not? And I'm thinking, and I know his mind, and I said, no, it's not. And he goes, correct. I said, so explain yourself. He says, wet is the sensation we feel once we come in contact with it, but by itself, it is not wet. So he went on for like an hour about this. That's just kind of the mind of my son. And my wife goes, see where he gets it? So I guess...
it's another one of those Apple... Those apple stories?
Yeah.
The apple doesn't fall too far from the tree?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Absolutely. So what time is it, I wonder? I wonder what time it is.
Tick-tock. Tick-tock.
What time is it?
It's time for Dave and Monty's Icebreaker.
Oh, boy.
Oh,
Yeah, you're messy. All right. This was actually sent in by Jason S., a listener. Wow. San Luis Obispo, California. You know where San Luis Obispo is?
Yes, I do.
Cal Poly's down there.
Yep.
Beautiful green rolling hills. Looks a little bit like Ireland.
Isn't there like a town near there that's like Switzerland town or something?
I don't know. The San Clemente is down there where the Hertz Castle is and all
There's
that.
like a town where it's like driving through Switzerland.
Yeah.
And everything is like from Sweden.
Oh, maybe.
And I think it's near there.
Well, I know the landscape is very much like Ireland and Switzerland. It's very green and plush. Well, this is maybe not so pleasant, but we'll see. 27-year-old Stanley had a bad habit of hooking up with what appears to be the wrong women.
Uh-oh.
So after the 5th try at a serious relationship, Stanley gave up and decided that he would stick to owning a pet, Dave.
Uh-oh.
So Stanley went to the local Humane Society and purchased himself an
sheep?
No, not a sheep. An 8-year-old German Shepherd named Petey. Well, among some of Stanley's dysfunctions was that he was a huge fan of hash. So much so that he had a stash of hash in his home, approximately 12 pounds of the stuff.
This is like a Cheech and Chong joke.
I don't know, man, but check it out. But Stanley was no fool. He kept his hash in a secure location, tucked deeply within the basement of his large San Luis Obispo home. One night, after a rather large party at Stanley's residence, Stanley received some visitors who weren't in the mood for a party, but more interested in questioning Stan concerning some drug trafficking accusations from nearby neighbors. This gets great. During the questioning, one of the officers recognized Stanley's dog as Petey, the retired DEA pup from several years prior. Now, how Petey ended up in the local Humane Society shelter wasn't clear, but one thing was sure: Petey hadn't lost his ability to sniff out narcotics. Long story short, Stanley's dog led police directly to the basement of his home and to Stan's stash of hash.
Wow.
You see, Petey was
for man's best friend.
Right? Petey was the name given to the dog, but as PD, as in police department, not PED.
Police dog.
Or police dog, yeah. PD now has a new home with a local deputy and his family enjoying retirement in a more appropriate surrounding.
Wow. That's great.
I am telling you, your sin will
Can't
find
make
you
this
out.
stuff up, right?
No, I mean, San Luis Obispo, who knew? I would expect it from Florida, but there you go. Petey the police dog. So, I don't know. That's one of those things you just wouldn't expect to happen to you if you were a hash smoking guy wanting a dog, right?
Well, you know what they say about karma, man.
It's sweet,
right? Eventually, stuff, it comes to fruition.
It does indeed. All right, so that's our little icebreaker, little bumper music here. Come on now. There it is. Whee! All right, we'll be back right after this with the topic, powerless?
Or not.
Or not. Don't go away.
When you're a prisoner.
Wait, what? It's almost time? It sure is for the 7th Annual Hope Fest, Arizona. Saturday, September 29th from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. in the Yavapai County Courthouse Plaza in beautiful downtown Prescott, Arizona. Live music, local and national recording artists, guest speakers, free family fun zone, car and motorcycle show, the Hopesters Community Resource Fair, food vendors, and so much more. And headlining the music this year, it's Selah. That's the 7th Annual Hope Fest, Arizona, Saturday, September 29th from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Visit www.hopefestaz.com. Dum ti dum ti dum ti dum ti dum ti dum. We have returned. Oh, and by the way, tomorrow is the 4th annual summer barbecue with Lifeline Connections alumni up in Vancouver, Washington. Fun, food, raffles, games, face painting, dunk tank, and a bouncy house for Dave.
Yay!
Everybody's welcome to this thing. It's from 3 to 6 p.m. at 10702 Northeast 117th Court in Vancouver, Washington at Faith Center. And Lifeline Connections, they're part of the Southwest Washington Recovery Coalition, which we love to attend their events as often as we can. So check that out. For more information, go to, where should you go to? I guess you go to lifelineconnections.org. Okay, there you go. Little barbecue time, and there's an AA camp out going up in Foster right now.
AA camp
at an AA camp out. Yeah, that's going on up in Foster.
Where's Foster?
Foster is the reservoir right east. My directions are wrong. East Sweet Home. You go through Sweet Home and you keep going, and Foster's right there. Sunnyside Park.
Okay.
So if you're so inclined, there you go. So the topic is powerless or not.
Or not.
So, are you powerless? It's interesting because I'm finding that a lot of times people are just talking about semantics when it comes to this issue.
Right.
And so, Dave, what spurred this topic, powerless? Question mark.
I think it was last week. It came up and we said, let's
do it next week.
Save this for next week. Yeah, which it's funny how God works because it actually tied into today's devotional, which probably would have been the topic if the topic wasn't powerlessness, but it fits together very nicely. It was let go and let God.
Yeah.
Right? And so powerless, it is probably one of my favorite topics because of all the controversy, if you will.
Oh, do you like controversy?
I love controversy. I love having a problem and then coming up with a solution. So whenever I see a problem, I try to help whoever is dealing with that problem to see a better solution or a different solution.
Well, people think there's controversy within politics, but let me tell you, if you're in the recovery community, there's plenty of controversy. So, the feeding trough is full.
And get me started here. And it doesn't. You know what it is though. It's personalities, right?
Right.
So it's supposed to be principles before personalities.
Sure.
But I think what happens a lot of times is the opposite because we got human beings involved.
Yeah.
And some people still want to control things and do it my way.
Right. And a lot of that's based in fear, right? Trying to control everything?
Maybe.
I'm afraid I'm not going to be in control, so I'm going to try to control you.
Some people are narcissistic where they have to always be right because they're just,
that's who they are.
They're just the bomb or whatever they think they are.
I could write a list.
I mean, they not to use derogatory terms.
But you're going to anyway.
None intended. Everything's got to be PC correct these days. And we lovingly refer to some people that are kind of over the top.
Yeah.
As like the AA Nazis or the NA Nazis.
Yeah.
They're the way they see the program is the only way, and that you better do it this way or else. But when you look at like what they're saying in the literature, in the history, they don't line up.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, you're right. Most people that are overly over the top dogmatic about something, many times, no. Hey, Petey, actually don't know what they think they know. Because when you open up the literature and you show them where they've misinterpreted or they're misquoting, they're like,
yeah, but
But or when did they change that? Well, it hasn't changed in 80 years. But. So, are we powerless or aren't we powerless? There's
yes.
Yes.
The short answer
yeah.
is yes.
Amen.
I mean, when I first got started this process, if you will, it started, probably, 16, 17 years ago.
Right.
Now, I've only been in my new life for 14 or almost 14, so that'd tell you that, something wasn't working for a while, because this whole thing about powerless, I was like, what are you talking about? You're not powerless. You have a choice. You have a choice whether or not you want to be laying in the gutter or you want to have a drink or not take a drink, right? That's, kind of my...
That's what
I'm not powerless.
My
I
thinking
can
was that way
choose
too.
to drink or not to drink.
I thought the same way.
I could choose to walk across the street or not walk across the street. I could choose whether or not to go to work or not go to work, or eat the sandwich or eat this whole pizza or whatever it is. Spend time with my friends. I'm not powerless. I have all the power in the world.
I have control over my own destiny.
Right. That the control word fits in there nicely too, because it's like I'm not going to give up my control to anybody, because when I did, I liken that back to like when I was younger, when you really didn't have a whole lot of control. It was basically go do this, go do that, don't do this, don't do that, and you either did or you didn't. And then if you maybe had some consequences if you didn't follow along with what the adults said. So when I got the chance to make my own decisions and have control, I'm like, no, I'm in control, right? Right. And that's where I think that whole process of, if everybody would do things my way, everybody think would be fine. Because what I was seeing oftentimes, and we see this, I don't know if you've ever seen this, but when I looked around me, I saw a whole bunch of hypocrites.
Oh yeah, I was quick to point those out.
And I'm smart enough, and I got enough common sense, and I got the instructions on how to use that common sense. And I didn't see a whole lot of people in my life that actually even had the common sense. And if they did, they didn't read the directions. And so it was like, I can only count on myself. I can control my own corner of the world. Right. And that's all. And I don't. That led to, I don't care what you think. I don't care what you say. It doesn't matter to me, because who are you? What are you going to do for me?
You bet.
Because the whole thing, everyone's out for themselves, because that's what our society tells us. It's individuality, right? That's what we're taught.
You bet.
And so it's all about me. It's all, so you're not going to help me because you're out looking out for yourself.
You deserve a break today.
Right.
You deserve that. You deserve the best that best can offer. You've earned it, baby.
Yeah.
You. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We can take a lot from other cultures that have a we model, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
It's a culture where it's of a we, like a family unit where we all work together, or a village, or they've used
it takes a village to raise a child. People that live in communities, people that live in communities that have that kind of mindset have the kids grow up better. They have a better, healthy outlook on life. But this independence thing of nobody's going to tell me what to do. Inanimate objects tell us what to do all the time. Most people, not all, but most people will stop at a red aluminum sign that says stop. But they won't let somebody who's maybe wiser suggest anything to them, but they'll stop at an inanimate object. Oh. It's crazy the way our society lives. So people think they have power.
Well, that's where the disconnect comes from the program, of AA or NA or any of the other,
12-step models.
Yeah, it's like it's the we, right? It's the we of the program. So we can do this together. And so they try to change society model, and people get caught up in both sides of this. And which direction do I go? if everything moved towards more of a we situation, I think we'd all get along better. I mean, I think it's in. I'm just trying to think about this. I think it's in Norway, or one of those places over there on that side of the world.
Right.
They have things like free education.
Yeah.
But they also have these community living environments where it's like this huge dorm, and you've got people from they got families, and they got single people, they got couples, they're all living in one
kind of a commune kind of thing.
Yeah, in a community,
right?
So that they have interaction together. So there's like community meals. Everyone sits down and eats together. Everyone looks out for each other. So if you got half the people are working, you got the other half watching the kids.
Sure.
There's you're going to school, right? You got 10 people or more in the same building, same house that you could go use as resources to
You're
help
doing your
you
homework together.
study, yeah.
You're studying together. Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of a cool situation.
Well, and it's interesting because people that are willing to be open enough to allow other people in their life to help guide and direct them, and I help you, you help me. That's altruism, we call that. We just end up healthier. I mean, we have more accountability. We get permission for people to maybe call us on our stuff once in a while. And we welcome that, even though it can be uncomfortable. But it is a we thing, and somewhere along the line, we have forgotten the fact that there is power in numbers. Even in the beginning of during creation, God saw that it was not good for Adam to be alone, right. So He created we. Yeah. And
what kind of games did they have on the Wii?
I don't know.
But boom.
That's very good. So there's.
I don't know about you, but
yeah,
I didn't do very well in isolation, even though I thought I was better off.
Yeah, no, I didn't either.
The only way that I could get healthy or be better and change my life is to not isolate and be around other people in the the we of the world.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, and I get the whole, people struggling with powerless and control, and and I don't even remember which program it was where it clicked in my head about the whole, and this is just my interpretation, the whole disease model of addiction, right?
Right.
About how your body chemistry can change to the point where you actually have to have that chemical in your body for it to
your
function.
Brain wiring changes.
And the whole disease concept, I get that, and I could be okay with that and looking at it from that perspective because in my life experience, I know that contrary to the whatever powers that be, diseases are curable, right?
Curable
and I know
treatable.
this for a fact. I know people that have cancer, and have done things that are like natural and healthy and been cured
and reversed
it, right?
And at the very least, most of them are treatable,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, most people die from the treatment that they get
more than they
cancer.
do that. Yeah, that's right.
Right, and so in my brain, so once I heard that, I can say, okay, then I can do something about it because I know that it's something that can be treatable and reversed, curable. Basically, is where I looked at it, and so then I was okay with that. I was looking at that. Okay, so what does that look like? And then I was more open to the whole interpretation of powerless. Mm-hmm. So I just separate it instead of saying that like I'm the word powerless. I'm powerless over everything. It's like no. I'm powerless over that first drug or that first drink or that first behavior that sends me down that road to irreversible, or at least in my mind, addiction. If I'm in my addiction, I'm like not really caring. I'm not trying to correct it.
Right.
And so now once I got that concept in my head and I'm living it out, then that's how I present it to people that I work with is, no, you're not powerless. Right? You have the power to make a choice to pick up that drug or drink. Once you pick it up, or that behavior,
you lose the power.
Then your choice goes out the window, because then your addiction takes over, your disease takes over.
Well, and this brings up an interesting dynamic, because one of the things we know about obsession is you can be powerless over something without putting it in your body if God has not removed the obsession. So it's actually not the drug you're powerless over, it's the obsession you're powerless over. And that's my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've seen in people that actually follow the directions, I mean, I look at something and I go, okay, there's 3 ways to do this thing, and I want to look at what has had the highest success rate of all, let's say three ways to do it. So I'm going to go with that. So I know by my personal experience and by my time around the 12-step rooms that the 12-step model to date is still the most effective method in the treatment of many different kinds of addictive illness. And so I look at that and I say, all right, so what does that mean? What is the 12-step model? How is it approached? How do you apply and implement it? And if you do that, then it is very likely that in that process, God enters into the picture and he removes the obsession to drink or use. Once the obsession is removed, now I have power that I never had before. And it's still not mine. It's still God's. But now I can tap into that. Whereas before I was powerless, I hadn't had a clue. I could no more choose not to pick up a drink than turn myself into a rock. But today I can do that because of this wonderful gift he's given me called the Holy Spirit that lives inside of me. And I can call upon that power to keep me safe. So once I was powerless, today I'm not. Now, here's the tricky thing. If I have a knee-jerk reaction to a bad day, not because I'm obsessed, right? Because God's removed the obsession, but because I'm being a knucklehead and I do make a wrong choice and I, at this point, choose to put something in my body, bam, now I've lost the power and choice again. And the obsession returns. And now I'm in deep
And
weeds.
I don't know about you, but I don't know anybody that's made a wrong choice if they're working a program.
Now, when it comes to substances, I agree with you. If you are applying and implementing a healthy program that has a proven track record, and you do that after God's removed the obsession, something is skewed. You've skipped a step. Right. There's something. If you're really honest with yourself, you're not being real honest with yourself.
Well, that's why you hear people relapsing after so many years. It's because they stopped doing.
They pulled
what's
back.
Working.
Yeah. It didn't just happen because it just did.
Right.
Something's behind it, right?
Yeah.
And it's usually, 9 times out of 10, it's on us.
I just had, I had this brain fart, but it just came back to me. So right. So the air came back into the anyway. So you want to compare it to I don't know. People can relate this to like sports or being a musician, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to continue to be able to do your gig or whatever it is,
right? You
got to keep practicing, right? You don't just get good one time and then the rest of your life you don't ever.
It will go away.
Practicing,
you'll lose
it. Yeah. I mean, if you're playing sports and you're a pitcher and you don't practice or you don't warm up, then you're going to injure yourself and then you're going to be out of commission and you're going to have to go find something else to do. It's the same thing with recovery. You got to keep practicing it. You got to keep honing your skills. Otherwise, you lose it.
So, what do we say to people that? And this is a great point because people will say, "Okay, I found Jesus, or I found my higher power, or whatever, and we're good now. And they stop going to meetings, or they stop making themselves accountable.
Exactly what I just said.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
But how come they don't
If I
see
find
that?
out that I'm good at shooting hoops,
Yeah. You got to keep shooting
because
hoops.
I've been playing up to that point my whole life. Well, do I stop playing now because now I've been recognized that I'm a good player?
Right.
No.
No. And people would be fast to say, of course not. But when it comes to their recovery, where'd they go, Dave?
I was sitting there thinking about what you said earlier about, how you work in the steps and then, eventually God removes the obsession. Sometimes it happens the opposite end, right? Mm-hmm. God removed my obsession before I started really working the steps.
Yeah, he'll do that.
And
he'll do that.
I mean, it's because I got it. I got my foot in the door. I stuck my toe in the water, and then I pulled it out, and then stuck it in, and I pulled it out because I still want to control things.
Yeah,
because I'm not powerless. And finally, I just surrendered and realized I need to do something different.
Yeah.
And through a series of events, I had this spiritual experience, and God removed the obsession, which is kind of scary. If anybody can relate to that, it's like, okay, now what the heck do I do? My whole life is totally on the opposite end of the spectrum, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how to live without some kind of chemicals in my system, but whether, be caffeine or methamphetamines.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so now I just gotta, and I'm so used to being in control of everything or trying to control everything.
Sure.
And not being powerless. I don't know, now I gotta do the opposite of all that stuff. And what does that look like? How do I do that? And it's it's kind of scary.
Yeah.
But in order to get where I want to go, I have to practice. I have to follow direction. I have to listen to other people that have been successful. Like you said earlier, it's I want to look at who's been successful, and then I want to follow that plan to the best of my ability.
Nancy L. says, we're never powerless if Christ lives in us. Now, I'm gonna not to disrespect Nancy at all, but I'm going to suggest that may be too of a simplistic statement, because I think it needs some commentary here. I consider, and I've known people that does, well, I turned my will and my life over to Jesus Christ. Now I'm good.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. If you've actually done that, the Word of God says the Spirit of God comes to dwell within you. All right. But if the Spirit of God is now dwelling within you, right, things are going to happen in your life. There's going to be a change. There's going to be a drive to continue in your walk, and it's not going to be sitting on your laurels and just expecting to be a good boy or girl.
Well, sometimes it doesn't even have that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like the turning it over. It's like getting a chunk of wood with one leg coming off of it and calling it a 3-legged stool. Right?
Yeah.
You're missing, you're missing a couple of legs on your stool. You're going to fall over, right? Because I've done it before I changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
I've listened to people. If you want God to work in your life and you want to change, all you have to do is ask him into your life and
bam,
it'll happen, right?
Yeah.
So I've done that. I mean, I've gone both ends of the spectrum, but and nothing happened.
Right.
Because for one, I wasn't, well, at least at the time. I can probably say now that there was something. God started working in my life. Or at least, it might have been there before that. I don't know. But it's one of those things that we don't recognize because we're not paying attention to it, too busy going the other direction, that even if he was standing in front of us waving, what's that? Is that a Alanis Morissette song?
I don't know.
What if God was one of us?
Oh, right. What if God was one of us?
So the video, it shows just some bums on the street, right?
Right.
And so it's like, even, if God was like from the movie standing in front of you, you probably wouldn't, you'd be like, who's this kook?
Sure.
And
we actually do that.
Right.
Because God is showing himself all the time, and we are totally clueless.
Where we got these blinders on. And I went through life for a long time with those blinders on until I got to the point where, he finally did the old, here's your sign.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. Yeah.
enough
ding
times,
dong.
it's like, okay, how many more literal signs do you need me to show you before you get it? And I finally said, okay, I give up. I'll give it a shot. And then everything fell into place. And that October 12th, 2004, I had the veil lifted from my eyes. Everything became clear, right? My obsession was removed. Right. My addiction was removed instantaneously. But it was very scary because now it's like, what the heck just happened?
And that wasn't by your power.
No.
That was by God's power.
I mean, that was in detox, and I'm sitting in there, all this stuff's going on, and then I got back to the jail, and I'm having all these visions, and, I'm having the devil and God talking to me, and I'm wide awake. It's not like a dream, and it just freaked me the hell out. And I just totally dove into, following Christ and pushed out the devil, and God's been in my life ever since. I'm not perfect, but
there's a difference between being a believer and being a follower.
Right.
No matter what faith it is. If you're a Buddhist, you can believe that, but if you're not following it, you're really not a Buddhist. You can call yourself a Christian if you believe Christ is the Son of God, but if you're not following with his power, obviously not yours, but if you're not following it, are you really? I mean,
I have a hard time with this, man, because I've told people you need to stop. You need to stop calling yourself a Christian, because you say I'm a Christian, and then your whole life is totally opposite of what a Christian is supposed to be.
Right. And we're not expecting you to be perfect,
right?
But at
least
Christian,
be quiet about it, right? Until you get
Yeah.
some training under your belt,
Yeah.
and you're moving in a direction. Your actions in your life should be a demonstration of Christ in your life.
Christian actually is a derogatory term that the Romans use twice in the New Testament, and it literally means little Christ or mimicker of Christ. So am I mimicking? Am I displaying Christ's likeness in my walk? Or am I still thinking I'm in charge?
Right.
And so you're right. We put a huge target on our back and the rest of our brothers and sisters when we just say, yeah, I'm a Christian, man. I believe in Jesus.
So does the devil.
Exactly. So you can believe that the 12 steps work. If you don't apply and implement them, they're not going to do anything. You can believe that God is all he says he is, but if you're not a follower, it's not going to apply.
Right.
So when Nancy says we're never powerless if Christ lives in us, I wonder about that because okay, do we now have a power we can tap into? Yes, but it's still not my power. And once I start saying it's my power, then I find myself in trouble because I start depending on me again.
I'm going to come to Nancy's rescue here because I think Nancy has Christ in her life, and she's probably living it out and walking it out.
That's why she can say this.
But so exactly. Sometimes we don't always have to have a 14-page declaration,
right? That's why
to make a statement.
That's why I said sometimes it's a matter of semantics.
Right.
I think her key word here is if.
Right, because okay, so then let's go on the other side of that. How do you know Christ lives in our life? That goes back to saying whether you actually are a Christian or not.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
I could believe what it says in the Bible, but if I'm not actually putting it to practice in my life, what good is it doing me?
Right. Nothing.
Do I really believe? Does Christ live in my life, or is he just a book on the shelf?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the person says, oh, that's my sponsor, and he hasn't called him in a year. He's a phone number in your wallet, but that's it. Oh, that's my church over there. When's the last time you went? I go at Easter. So it's not your church. It's where you go at Easter.
Right.
There's a big difference.
Check that box.
Yeah, check the box off.
Christmas, Easter.
Vincent W. says powerless in stage addiction. Yes. I'm not sure what stage addiction means. Are you?
Powerless
maybe active?
I think maybe, and I'm just throwing it out there, I think maybe just was had a dyslexic moment.
Oh.
So powerless in addiction stage.
Gotcha.
Right?
Gotcha. Left to my own devices, I am going to drink or use. Or worse.
Right. I think it goes to what we're talking about. Like, I'm powerless after I take that first drug or drink or that I engage in that behavior.
Yeah, I'm done. Once I put that in my body. In fact, to tell you the truth, you know that old story that you hear in treatment sometimes. You know, you're walking down the street, you see a hole, you fall in. You walk down the street, you see a hole, you walk around it, and you still fall in. You walk down the street. You know, eventually you got to walk down another street, right?
Right.
So there are things that if I engage in today, I lose my ability and choice because I'm done. So if I'm feeling like using some meth, I'm having one of those funky days, and I don't call on God, and I don't pick up the phone and call somebody or talk to my wife about it. I am telling you, once I go to the drugstore and buy a 10-pack of rigs, I'm done. Yeah. I haven't gone to Portland yet. I haven't bought the dope, but I'm done. And that's where we talk about relapse happening before we actually put the stuff in our body. Right. Linda M. says, yes, what a relief it is to be powerless. I love that because there is a freedom in that. When you really come to the place where you realize, wait a minute, this is God's show. I let go of my will and let my higher power lead me. One of my favorite sayings is pray about everything, worry about nothing.
You see that there's that from today's reading, let go and let God.
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing, but
sure.
Right?
Yeah. And by the way, and we talked about this before the show, letting go and letting God doesn't mean we say, well, God, you got this. I'm just going to sit on my laurels and wait for lightning to strike. Because I had news for you. Lightning probably isn't going to strike. You know, I'm just going to sit here and pray God gives me a job and eat Cheetos and watch soap operas until he gets me the job.
Well, I get the one where it's like, well, I'm just going to stay in the program. Then I'm going to do an internship, and I'm just going to wait on God to,
Yeah.
It's like, okay, yes, and pray about it, but you actually have to start down that process. So if you know you have to have a place to live, I just talked about this today.
Yeah.
If you know you have get a place to live, you know you have to get a job, you know you have to pay some fines, whatever it is, rebuild a relationship with your family. Mm-hmm. You start that process now. You make a list. How do I get to where I want to go?
Right.
You have to start a process. So maybe you don't know where you're going to live yet, but if you're at the end of your program, maybe you say, okay, I want to stay in this area. So what are my options? Well, it turns out I don't have a whole lot of options. So maybe I stay, if I'm in a program where I have the ability to stay past the time of my treatment, maybe that's a beneficial thing, right?
Yeah.
But that's not my plan. I'm not planning on staying there because it's easier. Hopefully the plan is I'm going to be self-sufficient. I want to get my life back together. I want to get back on track. And wherever God leads that, if it's some people end up going back and working for the treatment center that they went to treatment at, right? So if it's that, or if it's, working in the community or going into ministry work or whatever it is.
Or volunteering.
Right. So through that process of your program, you're engaging in things, you're helping other people, you're doing the next right thing, whatever that is. Mm-hmm. And in that process, God puts things in people in our life to go in the direction that we're meant to go, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
And then we got to be able to see those signs and not get in the way. And
but this is where putting one foot in front of the other comes into play, right? Because if you look at all your patriots of the Bible, Old Testament and New Testament, they moved one step and then God moved. Like the prodigal son started to turn and then the Father was there. Joshua walking across the river Jordan, he put one foot out, and then it dried up. All that stuff.
Right. What about that group of people that wandered around in the desert?
Yeah.
It's because they didn't follow directions.
They didn't follow directions. Now, they were moving, but they were going nowhere.
Yeah.
And boy, have I done that. I went to meetings for years, 3 times a day, and I couldn't stay sober because I wouldn't follow directions.
Because I want to do it my way.
I wanted to do it my way.
Yep.
And they said, well, just go to meetings. It'll keep you sober. Well, it didn't.
Right.
Because all I did was went to meetings.
Well, and if we shut ourselves off at that point.
Right.
If we shut ourselves off at, okay, go to meetings. So that's what I'm going to do, and that's where I shut myself off.
And then I thought, don't listen to what's being said.
I'm not open to anything else that happens. It's like, okay, so every other time I've gone out, I've left the treatment program, I've gone back to being an independent contractor, or I worked it for cash under the table.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm going to go back to doing that because I know I can line some things up and I can make some money.
Right.
Okay, so but what about retirement? What about health insurance? What about buying a house? Right? Mm-hmm. Let's look back at all of the times that you were self-employed. How much money did you actually make a year?
Yeah.
So maybe you should, the whole doing, the whole thing you have to change is everything.
Right.
Maybe this time you need to go get a job where you're punching a time clock. Right?
Yeah.
You go. You show up for work, you do your job, you get paid, you get your benefits, and the rest of your life is the rest of your life. Well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to punch a clock. Well, how do you do the opposite of everything you've done before if you're not willing to change that one direction, right?
Nothing changes and nothing changes. Nothing's changing.
I know someone that's struggling with that right now, but I had to do that myself. Because I was self-employed for a long time, and I just it was so much stress, and it was more conducive to my drinking than anything else.
Me too. I had a sign business that was like that. Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so I need to, and it was in the middle of my addiction when I made this decision. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to have all this stress in my life. So I want to get a job where I just show up, I get paid for doing a job, and I go home. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, I get, benefits. And it just happened that job was my recovery job, and everything worked in God's plan.
So Dave, how many times have we both seen people get narcotic free, it's out of their systems, or the alcohol or whatever it is, and they've got sobriety,
abstinence?
They've got abstinence, and that's it.
Yeah.
And they're getting ready to pack their bags and move on, and they go right back, like you're talking about, to the old behaviors that aren't necessarily drinking or using, but they're still the old behavior. So they go back into the same business that maybe it was a contracting business where everybody was drinking and partying all the time. They go, all right, I got this now. I'm in recovery.
Or sales.
So they go back, or sales, or they go back shacking up with the gal they're playing house with. Gosh, I see that all the time. I can't tell you how many people in the place that we both have worked have left the program and they're playing house again, and pretty soon on Facebook they're showing how much beer they're drinking. The old behavior doesn't change. People go into sober living environments where narcotics and alcohol are not tolerated, but every other behavior is okay. Right? So that tells me that they do not understand powerlessness.
No, they don't want to give up control.
They don't want to,
because
but they don't realize they're powerless.
I can almost guarantee you 98% of the people that go through treatment, you can spot that before they walk out the door.
Before they walk out, you bet.
And you try to point it out to them, and they're like, yep, not going to go down that road again. And then they walk out the door, and they go right to it because they're still engaging in the same type of behaviors in treatment.
Sure.
Sometimes they call it something else, or they don't even recognize it. Mm-hmm. Talking about women and being disrespectful and, glorifying drug use or your history, and, talking to, it's just all kinds of different little things that can stack up.
I like what Donald R. said. He goes, I am powerless when I am weak. He is strong in me. There you go. Steve S. says, all one has to do is look at his or own life. Powerless, sure I am. Stephen C., powerless by myself because of my own desires. So these all things lead to the suggestion that left to our own devices, we are powerless.
Right.
Even, today, I'm powerless over other people's choices. I may influence them, I may hinder them, I may encourage them, but their choice is going to still be their choice.
What step is that talks about powerlessness?
Step 1.
Okay. I used to love going back to the treatment center that I went to on Saturday mornings and bringing a meeting. And one of the things that I would always say every day, every Saturday, is you guys gotta, you gotta get step 1 before you leave here. I don't care what else you do. You got to get to step 1, because if you don't get it,
you're not going to get anything.
You might as well stop at the front desk on the way out and reserve a room for a month down the road, if you're lucky.
You're right.
I watched guys make it to the airport, and by the time they got to the airport, they were just plastered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too. I've seen it too. So Guy, he says lack of power. So what he's quoting here is actually out of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Lack of power, that was our dilemma. This is on page 45, I believe. We had to find a power by which we could live, and it had to be a power greater than ourselves. Obviously, it says. But where and how were we to find this power? Well, that's exactly what this book is about. Its main object is to enable you to find a power greater than yourself, which will solve your problem. Now, let me just say that if you're powerless, and I'm powerless, and the whole room is powerless, 0 plus 0 is 0. So, if lack of power is my dilemma, I need a power, right? That's what the book is saying. Why do I need a power? Because that's a power, and we both have experienced this in our life, that will do for us what we can't do in the state of being powerless. And so you and I, and many people we know, have turned our will and our lives over to that power. And it's still not our power, but it's him. And as long as we tap into that, as long as we continue to lean on that power, then we're in pretty good shape, even in the midst of a horrible day. Right? So that's the book's take on it, is lack of power was our dilemma. Not alcohol, not narcotics, lack of power.
Or misplaced power.
Yeah. And so I know that when in the past, when I have picked up again, one of the things that my sponsor pointed out to me was, you may not understand powerlessness, because evidently you thought you had power. And he was right.
Every time I hear this, I cringe.
Yeah.
Because I think we do people a disservice. And I try not to do that anymore. I haven't done it for a long time. The whole thing about, what you just said, we have to put that into context.
We do.
Powerless over our addiction if we take that first drug or that first drink. Right? Other than that, to me, I have power. I have the power of free will, and I can make the choice.
Well, now
on what I do with my life. Even in my addiction, if I get to the point where I'm tired and I want to do something different, I have to have enough power in myself to make a decision to realize.
But where does that power come from? Does it come from you?
I used to think so.
That used to,
right?
The key, yeah. That's what I'm saying.
That's why I kept going through the revolving door.
Because one of the things when I talk to people about, if I'm sitting down with somebody to try to figure out if they're an alcohol abuser or if they're an alcoholic, is I say, okay, so when you put alcohol in your body, do you have little or no control over how much you drink or how often? Yeah, pretty much I lose all control. Okay. Some would say that's the phenomenon of craving. It certainly is a sign. It's a red flag that there's a problem here. But let's talk about what happens when you're stone cold sober. That's what I want to know. Are you obsessing? Are you watching the clock? Is that all you're thinking about? Is that drink after work? Is that tail wagging the dog when you're sober?
Are you just waiting for Friday to come?
Right. And so what I'm saying here is it possible that when I'm stone cold sober, I'm powerless? Have I lost the power in choice somewhere? Now the book would suggest that's true.
But okay, here's where the conflict might come in.
Okay.
Or the argument. This was presented to me as we were talking about thoughts and actions, right?
Yeah.
You can think whatever the heck you want.
Okay.
It matters what you do. So even if I think about it,
yeah,
and I, even if you go as far as to say maybe I'm obsessing about it, because I can obsess about lots of things.
Mm-hmm.
But what do I do? Do I actually go and do I actually use?
But can't your thinking actually lead to your decision making?
If I let it,
right.
So that's once I let it. Once I take that first drink, that first drug, that first behavior, first pull of that machine,
mm-hmm.
or whatever
now
it is,
you've lost the power and choice.
Then
right?
Then I'm powerless.
So let me ask you this, Dave. Though, so
especially if afterwards I'm going, oh man, why did I do that?
But what about? And I've said this to myself: if I had the power and choice, I would have chose not to. I didn't wake up today saying I'm going to run over the neighbor's dog with my car because I'm drunk and lose my wife and alienate everybody. I'm not choosing to do that.
Well, that's what I'm talking. Exactly what I'm talking about. As soon as you decide that you're going to use, then all bets are off. Then you are powerless.
Okay,
that's when
giving
you lose
the
house and the wife and your dog gets run over by a truck.
Right. So I'm still sober in the sense that I don't have it in me. But I've made the decision to give into that, and I'm done.
Yeah, because if you don't, I mean, you can still we classify that sometimes as a dry drunk.
Right.
I had a guy that was a good. He was in my aftercare counselor one year, and then we became friends, and he was a mentor, and he told me a story about, and I might have told you this before, but his first year of out of treatment, his wife finally said, "You need to either start drinking again,
mm-hmm.
or go back to treatment,
mm-hmm.
because you're a lot easier to deal with when you're
drinking."
Drunk.
Yeah,
right. So a year into his abstinence, I'll say, he went back to treatment and figured out what he had missed along the way.
Is it possible for and you know this as somebody that's in the field, as somebody who's certified in this area, is it possible for somebody to have, through their using and drinking, actually change their brain chemistry to the point that even though they're not putting any chemicals in their body, they're so messed up they don't have the ability to make the right choices, and so they need some very specialized care?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a certain point where you've done enough damage to yourself that initially you would need some extra assistance. I mean, the big book talks about it, right? That anybody can, I'm paraphrasing, anybody can recover if they have the capacity to be honest with themselves.
Yeah.
Sometimes people don't even have that, and so someone else needs to intervene and to help get them down that road. It doesn't mean later on down the road, after they've had a period of sobriety and abstinence and healing, that they can't be successful and be, just like everyone else. I mean,
sure.
I just talked to the guy today, and he talks about how he's always like, as he's talking, he's always like counting the days, right?
Yeah.
He always talks about, I had 6 months, I had 3 months, I had 18 months, you know what I mean? And it's like, well, maybe that's part of your problem. Maybe you need to stop counting How about just focus on today?
His focus is off.
Just focus on the next 24 hours. I can stay sober today, and I'm going to do the next right thing today, and I'll worry about tomorrow when it comes, and tomorrow usually works itself out. But our bodies are amazing. The human body is an amazing machine. It will replace, regenerate every cell in every cell in your body will be replaced. It takes about 7 years. So you figure, I mean, it sounds like a long time, but if you one day at a time, right, kind of thing, eventually you get to the point where your body has restored itself. Now, as that time goes by, what you put into your body, what you put into your mind, will help it heal faster,
or slow it down,
or or stay stuck, or you know what I mean. And so that's having that knowledge and being able to separate it from like, okay, that's down the road, and I can't worry about that. All I need to worry about is today.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Mm-hmm. Solutions for life today.
Right.
That's the whole point of why I called it that, is because the solution is in dealing with life one day at a time.
Right. Now, I made the decision, and the Big Book talks about this too, to be done with drinking for good and for all. But the way I lived that out isn't in tomorrow.
Right.
It's in today. So to say, well, did you you can't make a commitment not to ever drink again. Yeah, I can, but I can't live that out any further than this 24-hour period. And so I don't even think about, how am I going to deal with something that comes up tomorrow? I don't know.
Right.
I can't waste my time thinking about that.
That's why we have to do everything in our ability to live the best life we can every day. You've heard people talking about, about how you treat others, right? So if every day we're the best person that we can be, then we don't have any regrets down the line when we lose somebody in our life, or if tomorrow doesn't come for us. At least we've taken care of things in our life, and we've taken care of the people in our life. So we're not leaving behind someone that's broken that we haven't fixed. We haven't done our part to correct the situation.
You could lay your head down on your pillow and go sleep. Chris A., the last comment here, says, no, I have a choice, the power to choose. I choose life. I choose Jesus. And today, as I sit here, I have, for the first time in my life, and I mean today as the first time, but when I'm saying figuratively speaking, for the first time in my life, I have the ability through the power of God to tap into His power, and I can live a successful and productive life. There was a time I was so messed up, I didn't have the ability to do that. And some folks came alongside me, and they put their hand out. They said, come with us. And I had just enough willingness, just a little bit of willingness, which I think came from God anyway, to say, okay. And we went on this journey together, and it's been the most marvelous thing that's ever happened to me. Mm. And I'm telling you, listeners, you don't want to miss it.
Right.
You really don't.
I mean, life is amazing now. I mean, if I would have been sitting in with a couple of guys talking about this 14 years ago, I would have said you're a bunch of crazy goofballs.
Pass
you better
the bong,
stop,
baby.
Yeah, you better put the bong down, or put the meth pipe down, because you've been huffing the Freon too much or something.
We are out of time, but listen, if you'd like to send in a crazy story like Jason did from San Luis Obispo, please send us an email at take12radio@comcast.net. That's TAKE, the number 12, radio@comcast.net, and we'll use it for an icebreaker, as long as it's appropriate, not too bizarre. Although some of them can get pretty bizarre, but send them to us. We'd like to have fun with those. Dave, our closing song is by Mark Elder, recovery recording artist, and this is a prime example of a person in their state of powerlessness. This song is called "If I Don't Get a Drink, I'll Die."
her best to try to understand, but she don't see what goes on beneath. I don't think anyone can. I built out this wall around my world to try to shut out the pain. Whiskey and beer, a mortar and brick, but they don't block out the shame. I feel like I'm lost with no way out, no even the will to try. I know the booze is killing me. If I don't get a drink, I'll die. I'm falling fast from grace with no salvation in sight. Searching for courage just to face this empty, cold morning light. I wish I could stop the shaking, the pounding in my head. Stop this room from spinning, so I could go back to bed. I feel like I'm lost with no way out, or even the will to try. I know the booze is killing me. If I don't get a drink, I'll die. If I don't get a drink, I'll die. If I don't get a drink, I'll
Getting down and real with his song, If I Don't Get a Drink, I'll Die. That's Mr. Mark Elder. Listen, until our next broadcast, this is the Monty Man along with Dave Fleming, reminding you that you are entitled to overcome.
This has been a broadcast of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.